I was sitting here in a setting just like this a few weeks ago. I had a couple across from me and my wife sitting here, and we're talking about this homestead life that we live. Everyone, they come out, they see the open land and the pigs and the chickens, the donkey, the sheep, the goats, the cows, the vegetables. They see the jars on the shelf, and they're like, man, I want this but. And there's always this conjecture that happens in their mind, but. And in my mind, there is no but. There's only do. So I wanted to talk about 5 reasons right now why you should be homesteading. And this goes beyond just, oh, you've got delicious vegetables. I really wanted to go in depth on 5 reasons that I find the homestead life worth living. And make sure you stay tuned for number 5, because number 5 is really important. It's really special to my heart, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. So number 5 is about preparedness. There's a lot of just garbage things happening in the world. You're looking over at what's happening in Ukraine or the Middle East, and you're like, oh man, that's really sketchy. And I think we as Americans have become very spoiled in our day-to-day lives. We don't bat an eye or really think about a soldier dying because we're not used to mass death. We're not used to have to sacrifice. And that's really sad, honestly, in the long run, that's kind of how our society runs. Unfortunately, that's not how the rest of eternity is going to run. Eventually, the United States will have its next greatest challenge. And I hope that I'm not alive when it comes. I hope it never comes. But I am a firm believer that one day that it will happen. And I don't think that it's because of Republicans. I don't think it's Democrats. I don't get into the politics of things. It's just the inevitable of human nature that something will turn south. Whether that's an alliance, whether that's the world food supply, whatever that might be, a worldwide pandemic, there's many things that can go wrong. And being prepared is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Now, and I'm going to use a great example of that. During COVID-19 lockdowns, that first day was really difficult for a lot of my friends and family. They came home and they did not, but maybe have a few days worth of food stored up, maybe a day or so of gas. They didn't have anything. They relied 100% on government handout to be able to make it on. And so what would happen though if our government was not able to resupply us in money to go to the store? And that's a scary thought for a lot of people, but I think that's a real thought that we have to start taking into balance. So maybe it's not a global pandemic. Maybe it is though the onslaught of a World War III or an attack on American soil, where our tax dollars won't be going back to us. They'll be going to front the war effort, whether on United States soil or abroad. So during the pandemic, though, I was able to come home and I knew that I would have been fine for the next 3 months, no questions asked, no worries. I had over 80 chickens, whole chickens sitting in my freezer. I had 2 lambs that were already cooked, sous vide packed and ready to go in my freezer. On my shelves, I had over 60 jars of canned chicken meat that was ready to go. I had soups. I even had canned water. I could have held up in my house for well over 3 months. And my entire system was made to where it could regenerate itself. So I still had chickens on the farm. So I could continue to hatch chickens as well as eat the eggs. So I can continue to grow my meat and my eggs. So I could do the same thing with my lambs. I could just grow the herd that fall to produce more meat, not sell any off. What I was very also blessed with was that not only was I able to have enough for 3 months, no questions asked, I was also able to bless others because of my preparedness. I had the things I needed to provide for my family. And this was a big part of my journey. Back in 2014, I had one of probably the most depressing time in my life. I'm a hardworking man. I'm an executive chef. I've put in my time. At that time, I'd been a sous chef and I'd been property manager for some golf clubs, and things just went south. I went from being a big fish in a small pond, working as a chef and food and beverage manager for a golf club, and then my golf club was purchased. And so I was out of a job. And so I faced a point where I had no money and no food to provide for my family of 5 at the time. And that's a very difficult thing. And I made a promise that I would never do that again to myself or my family. And then 2017, we start this journey on our new homestead. And then sure enough, because of our hard work and our preparation, we were ready for the 2020 pandemic. Who would have thought? Who would have known? And again, everybody likes to pick on the homesteaders, that were these tinfoil hat, crazy people, but there we were ready to go with food. And it was so relieving and a stress off of my shoulders knowing that I had all of that there ready for me to go. Number 4 is community. People underestimate the strength of a community and what a community can do to help each other. I'm acquaintances and friends with many homesteaders across the state and across the Southeast. These homesteaders I trade with. Sometimes it's as simple as I trade some cooking skills and they trade me some meat. Maybe I go over and I do some labor for them and then we barter off something. But at the end of the day, I have a community of people around me who are there to learn with me and be along the journey with. There's this great myth about homesteaders that I've never really understood. We have this vision of this wide open plains, and our homesteads are these giant multi-acre facilities, and they can be, but you could be homesteading inside of the city, and there's homestead communities inside of the city that you could be a part of. And I highly recommend finding that community and that niche that's near you, because there's people homesteading right now. My dad is an inner city homesteader. He homesteads inside of a homeowners association that's growing in his backyard, on his back deck. He's not able to grow meats, but he could trade with somebody who is growing meat. And again, that comes down to having a community of people. He's bartering his vegetables for fresh meat, whether that's through me and my chickens and my meat here or a friend there over in Georgia. Our community is this odd mix of like homesteaders, homeschool families, inner city people trying to provide for themselves and be less reliant on government influence. Not that it's always about that, but it is a huge part about what goes on out here and the education of that, of how little steps we can take each week that can help us get, whether that's fully getting off the grid or just not being reliant on Uncle Sam to give you a cut when things go wrong. It's nice to be in a partnership with people who are here. And I'm gonna give a good example of the community that we have here. I was looking for feeder pigs to go out here on my pastures. And through this process, I met a gentleman. You may know him on YouTube as The Max, and a great homestead channel, over 278,000 subscribers over there. Great guy. The man you see on the screen is the exact same man that you meet in person. Cannot say enough nice things about him. And I was able to trade and buy these feeder pigs from him. So during this process, my Pyrenees puppies ran out and they wanted to be out there and be in the middle of it. He had little kids. And so they were able to play with puppies and we could talk for a minute. And then after that was done, his wife, who was in the car, said, "Hey, I think I've got a friend who's looking for Pyrenees." So the next thing I know, I'm now getting to meet another person inside of their circle called, her name was Heather Heathcock. And I believe she's got a YouTube channel. I'll try to find it as well. And she wanted Pyrenees puppies. And they were able to connect us, help us get her Pyrenees puppies. Now we're on our side and we're looking for goats. Well, who do I reach out to? I reach out to the Max and I reach out to the Heathcocks, because I know there are people here in my area who are community. And if they don't have it, they have somebody in their veins of people that are around them that can find that for me. It's just a great community to be in, because people aren't here in the homestead community saying, "Nope, I have all this information and you can't have it." We're all here trying to help each other and be the best homesteaders that we can be. Number 3, and I think homesteaders might laugh just a little bit at this, and that's cost savings. Cost savings is kind of a weird term when we talk homesteading, because there is a lot of expense that goes into it. The infrastructure of the barns, the coops, the fencing, all of that costs a lot of money to not just create, but to upkeep. I'm constantly having to fix things. And that's just kind of part of homesteading. That's a part of farming. It's the nature of the business, if you will. But there's also ways that we're saving money. And it might not always be price per pound. But, some people, people gawk at me when I say I want $5.50 per pound for my chicken, yet they'll go and they'll pay $7.50 to $8.50 over at Whole Foods for a certified organic, God knows what chicken, when they could have had the exact same thing off of my homestead for $2 to $3 less per pound, and they would have supported a local grower. There's lots of cost savings, and you got to understand kind of how all of that works into your homestead. When you're first getting in, it can be costly. It does not always have to be that way. There's ways to go about saving money in a homestead. And I thought that's a whole nother episode that we might have to deep dive into. I don't think we can solve all of that in one day, but I think that's a great episode for the future. So I do plan on doing more on this concept. When we were in Starkville, I had the cheapest homestead I'd ever put together. And now I have this 12-acre monstrosity that doesn't put out half of the output that the one that I did for dirt cheap. I'm having to go back to the drawing board here this year because of that success that I had at a homestead that was only really 2 acres. Don't think that you've got to have everything expensive. There's ways to source free things, whether that's finding them by county dumpsters or finding things for cheap on Facebook, Craigslist. Trading is a big way to do through it. Sometimes you could trade labor for materials. That's a great way that I've gotten free materials, is by volunteering my hours. Hey, I'll work for you. Would you give me those 100 blocks of cinder blocks if I come in and I work 5 hours for you? And you'd be amazed at what people will do to help you. People want to help. People want to do good things and help others around them. There's definitely ways we can save money. So yes, cost savings is a reason to homestead. Number 4, the health savings. The American food system is becoming a dumpster fire. I am a chef. I see it every single day. We think our vegetable products are high quality because we can get a tomato in January. That doesn't make our vegetables nutritious or flavorful for that matter. It just means you could find a tomato in January. They're pumping a gas over it so they can ship it and land here in Mississippi or the Northeast, wherever it might be, in January. Problem is we've watered down the nutrition of our vegetables and meats and everything else so we can have meat as a quick commodity. So yes, we can now have fruits, vegetables, and meat year-round anytime we want. But the sacrifice is the nutrition level of that product. Food simply just doesn't have the same look, taste, texture, or nutrition as it did 40 or 50 years ago. I'm not an old man. I'm only 37 years old, and I still know in my time what used to be a delicious tomato looks very different than the tomatoes that I now get into the store, particularly at this time of year. We have to be super careful about our food system and what we eat. I am a firm believer that the first round of medicine that you take is what you consume. And unfortunately, the American food system is high fat, high sugar, and high salt. And our brain craves those things. And listen, I'm not a skinny boy. I'm a guy who fights my own urges. I'm now at that age where I got to make life decisions. I'm having to be better. So this is not a mass criticism on everyone. This is I'm recognizing my own problems and my own fault, and I've got to do better. I've got to do more of my own growing to help me get better. But I'm a firm believer that our first round of medicine is the food that we consume. I've always wondered what the cost of our food system is. When we look at the rise of cancers and diabetes, high cholesterol, all these different stomach diseases and cancers and heart disease, and at what point are we responsible for that for ourselves? And how can we be more responsible for our health and our own growth than by growing it ourselves? And I think there's something to that where I'm not relying just on the American healthcare system to take care of myself. I'm taking it one step further by taking the first round of medicine, which is what we consume into our bodies. Medicines and all of those things are great, and I'm not dogging on a doctor. I'm not saying that you should quit your medicine. I'm not getting in on any of that. Do not take that out of this. I can't say this enough that our first round of medication comes from the food that we consume. The last one, the most important one for me, that goes beyond more than I can explain, is the lifestyle itself. There is something freeing when you don't have to worry about where your food is going to come from. Life is very different when you are living in the city or going on about your day at a very fast pace. I'm not dogging on that life. I've lived that life where I'm in the city. I'm working 9 to 5. I'm hustling. I'm sitting in traffic to and from. By the time I get home, 7 o'clock, eat my meal. Then the next thing I know, it's like 9 o'clock. I'm mentally dead. I'm going to bed. And then I go to bed and it starts all over again. I've become this zombie that's going through life. I'm not seeing the things that are going on around me. But there's something about homesteading that's just a little bit different. You see the little details in life that maybe you wouldn't see before. You see the blossoms that are growing on the trees. Excited about that means that my pears are growing. I'm going to have pears this year. Maybe it's the noticing the nipples on your dairy goats. You notice that they've gotten larger and they're swollen. The milk bag itself has dropped down. That lets you know that I'm excited. I have the baby goats that are on the way. You notice the little details a little bit differently whenever you're homesteading. And it's very freeing. It's very relaxing. And I'd like to say that the biggest part for me is that it's been very mentally healthy for me to be in this lifestyle. When I'm in that 9 to 5 push rut, what I've learned is that I don't enjoy life. I feel disconnected from life, and not just the farm life, but my own family. I'm not being me. I'm not being Jonathan. When I'm just working on the lines and being a chef and hammering at it, I'm not a good dad. Like, I'm not a good husband. But when I'm here and I've got my kids and family around me, we're able to be a family. We're able to learn, to grow. There's a lifestyle that kind of goes along with it that's just a little bit slower in a good way. Because at the end of the day, you've only got so many days till your expiration. There's an old, I think it's Greek, the corpus ipsa est morbis. I think that's what it was. Life is a disease. And the day you're born is also the day you're dying. So you've got a set number of days that you're going to be on this planet. So why waste them being a zombie going through life when you can be experiencing all of what God has created? I believe maybe you don't believe in God. I like to use the word the creator. And I like the word the creator because something, no matter what you believe, at the end of the day, something had to create the first atom. Something had to create the first spark. We can't just say the Big Bang happened, a micro thing turned into a fishy, which turned into a squid-looking thing, which turned into a human. However that might be. Something still created the first particles. And I believe that was the creator. And however you express that, that's between you and God. I believe that the Creator has put us here to help be great moderators of the earth and to be good to the earth. And I feel like homesteaders, we understand that there's a certain level of dominion that God has given us to be on this earth and to enjoy this earth and to take life one day at a time. Maybe that's some sugar-coated answer to somebody, but I know there's 10,000 other homesteaders out here who would agree with. So if you disagree with me, put it down below in the comments. Also, if you agree with me, slap them down there in that comment section. I believe this year is the year. And just like I told that couple, I'm telling you now, stop waiting. There's no reason for 2024 not to be your year to start homesteading. You could be homesteading in the city right now. You could be growing inside of your house under grow lamps, or growing in your garage, growing on your back porch, growing in a community garden. There's many things that you can be doing to homestead and to provide for yourself. And maybe the 12-acre farm is something that you get down the road. That's what it was for us. We were living in the city. We were living in subdivisions our houses were so close, I could pass a coffee cup through my window in my kitchen to my neighbor in his kitchen. But yet we still managed to start to provide vegetables and to start a game plan for what was going to be this 12-acre farm. And we could not have gone just straight from living in the city to doing this. You have to practice. You have to mold and to learn and develop that community. You can't just turn it on one day. And that's not how homesteading is going to work in the best way. If you win $1 billion right now and you start your homestead, you're not going to be great. You're not going to be able to do it. It takes trial and error. And the only way you can start that trial and error is to do it right now. So do it. Get involved. Start your homestead. Make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe, enjoy our community, comment down below. And again, we're super excited that you're here. I'm the homesteading chef. I'm really excited. I got the solo stove out. I got a beef tenderloin about to come out. We're about to cook here in a minute. I'm looking forward to it. If you want to see a video of me cooking this beef tenderloin, make sure you hit right here. If you want to see a video about the 5 things I wish I knew before I started growing pigs, make sure you hit right here. And again, like and subscribe down below. Thank you so much. And we're looking forward for you being a part of our community.